The high-pitched beep, beep, beep of a reversing truck sliced through the quiet of a 5:15 a.m. Tuesday. I watched it on my phone, the crisp night vision feed showing a flatbed tow truck positioning itself in front of my driveway. The amber lights strobed across my lawn, casting long, dancing shadows. I took a slow sip of my coffee, the warmth of the mug a pleasant contrast to the cold, calculated satisfaction settling in. They were actually doing it. After weeks of threats and petty escalations, HOA President Carol Dempsey was making her move. And she had no idea she was about to pay my company to try and steal my own truck. It all started 3 weeks ago with a single piece of paper. Not a letter, not an email, but a fluorescent orange sticker. The kind with adhesive so aggressive you need a heat gun and a prayer to remove it. It was slapped dead center on the driver's side window of my new Ford F-250. The violation, according to the crudely written text in the box, was prohibited commercial vehicle parking. I stood there in the driveway, the morning sun just starting to warm the asphalt. My truck was obsidian black, meticulously clean and completely unlettered. It had no ladder rack, no external toolboxes, no gaudy corporate logos. It was my personal vehicle, which I occasionally used to visit job sites for my logistics business. I peeled a corner of the sticker. It tore, leaving behind a gummy white web of residue that was going to take an hour to scrape off. This wasn't a notification. It was vandalism, disguised as enforcement. I walked back inside, pulled up the HOA's covenants, conditions, and restrictions on my monitor, and scrolled directly to Article 7, Section 4. Prohibited vehicles. I knew the bylaws better than the board did. I'd read them cover to cover before I even made an offer on the house. The definition of a commercial vehicle was explicit. It had to have visible signage, externally mounted equipment, or be over 1 ton gross vehicle weight. My truck met none of those criteria. My first email to the board was polite, almost clinical. I attached a photo of the sticker, a photo of my clean truck, and a screenshot of Section 4 with the relevant passage highlighted in yellow. I requested the violation be removed from my record and asked who, specifically, had placed the sticker on my private property. The reply came not from the generic board email, but directly from Carol Dempsey. Her emails always read like they were typed with oven mitts on, all caps and misplaced exclamation points. The board reserves the right to interpret the rules as we see fit. The truck is a work truck, and it is an eyesore. Please comply. An eyesore? It was the newest vehicle on the block. I glanced out the window at Carol's own minivan, a decade-old beige vessel with a trail of rust creeping from the wheel well, and a coexist bumper sticker peeling off the back. The irony was palpable. This, I knew, wasn't about the truck. It was about the HOA election 2 months prior. I'd run on a platform of financial transparency and cutting frivolous spending, like the $5,000 community garden that consisted of 3 sad-looking tomato plants in a wooden box. Carol, the incumbent, had won by a narrow margin, and she hadn't forgotten my challenge. The harassment escalated predictably. A second orange sticker appeared a few days later. Then the fines started. $50 for the first offence, $100 for the second. Then a formal letter printed on cheap paper and smelling faintly of cat, informing me of a new $100 daily fine until the offending vehicle was permanently removed from the community. This is when the evidence hunt began in earnest. My home security system was good, but I upgraded. I installed a 4K camera with a motorized zoom lens directly overlooking my driveway. I hardwired a motion-activated dashcam into the truck itself. Every document, every email, every sticker was photographed, scanned, and saved to a dedicated folder on my cloud drive, labeled simply Dempsey. The footage was cinematic gold. There was Carol, power walking up my driveway at dawn, phone held out like a tricorder, taking pictures of my license plate. There she was, peering into my truck bed, which was empty save for a folded-up blanket. My favorite clip was of her testing my driver's side door, her reflection a distorted mask of indignation in the tinted glass, before she slapped another sticker on with a triumphant thwack. Each clip was time-stamped, catalogued, and saved. I continued my email correspondence, maintaining a professional tone. I cited the bylaws. I cited state property law regarding trespass and vandalism. I asked for a formal hearing. Her replies grew shorter, more belligerent. The board, she claimed, had held an emergency vote via email and authorized immediate towing if the vehicle wasn't gone by the end of the month. That's when I decided to check a different kind of file. Not my HOA folder, but the contract bids on my work computer. My main business is logistics, but a few years ago I diversified by acquiring a local towing and recovery company that was going under. It was a solid, profitable business that I mostly managed from a distance. One of our biggest contracts was municipal towing for the city, but we also handled private property impounds for businesses and, yes, homeowners associations. I pulled up the vendor list for our HOA, which they were legally required to post on the community website. I scrolled down to Towing and Impound Services, and there it was, in black and white. Apex Recovery. That's our DBA, our Doing Business as name. Carol had, in her infinite wisdom, put my own company on contract to tow my own truck. She'd signed the paperwork herself 6 months ago, clearly never bothering to look up the owner of the LLC. I leaned back in my chair, a slow grin spreading across my face. The trap wasn't just set. The HOA had paid for the materials, dug the hole, and installed the tripwire themselves. All I had to do was wait for them to take the bait. Last night, the final email arrived. Subject: Final warning. The message was blunt. Towing was scheduled for Tuesday, 5:30 a.m. Any attempt to interfere would be reported to the sheriff. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my company's dispatch portal. I located truck number 7, our newest flatbed. I saw the job order, entered automatically via the HOA's online portal. Impound unauthorized commercial vehicle at 124 Willow Creek Lane. My address. With a few clicks, I added a private note to the driver's ticket, visible only to him. Then, I set a new alert on my phone. All that was left was to brew some coffee and enjoy the show. The flatbed's hydraulics hissed, tilting the bed with a low groan. My driver, a solid pro named Mike, stepped out of the cab, the slam of his door echoing in the still morning air. He gave a nearly imperceptible nod toward my living room window before starting his performance. I watched it all unfold on the 65-inch screen I'd mirrored my security feed to, feeling like a director watching his own movie. Mike didn't rush. He walked a slow, deliberate circle around my truck, his heavy boots crunching on the asphalt. He ran the beam of his maglite over the doors, the tires, the tailgate. He pulled out his phone, and following standard company procedure, my procedure, he began taking photos. A wide shot of the truck and house, a close-up of the VIN plate through the windshield, a shot of the license plate. He was creating a perfect, unimpeachable chain of custody for a tow that was never going to happen. Right on schedule, a porch light flickered to life 3 houses down. The front door of the Dempsey residence creaked open, and out she came. A warrior in a fluffy pink bathrobe and slippers, her phone held aloft like a conquering general's sword. She marched across her damp lawn, a smug smile plastered on her face, ready to supervise her moment of victory. That was my cue. I opened my front door and stepped out into the cool, pre-dawn air, still holding my coffee mug. The diesel fumes from the tow truck hung in the air. "Morning, Carol," I said, my voice perfectly level. "That's a lot of truck just to prove a point, don't you think?" Her triumphant expression faltered for a second, replaced by a flash of irritation. "You were warned," she snapped, her voice shrill. "You were given multiple violation notices and you refused to comply. This is the consequence." She waved a dismissive hand at Mike. "Hook it up. I want this eyesore out of my sight." Mike, bless his professional soul, didn't even glance at the truck. He looked from me to her, the picture of a man just trying to do his job. "Ma'am," he said, his voice calm, "before I can hook any vehicle, I need to confirm the impound order is valid and that you are the authorized agent on site." "I am the president of this HOA," she shrieked. That's all the authorization you need. Actually, it isn't, I interjected smoothly. I took a step forward, placing myself between Carol and my truck. Carol, my attorney, Mr. David Chen, sent a formal cease and desist letter to your home yesterday afternoon. It was delivered by courier at 3:15 p.m. and signed for by a Mr. Dempsey. It was also sent via certified mail. It specifically cited State Code 45.13 regarding the illegal seizure of private property and Penal Code 602 for criminal trespass. Seeing as you're here, directing this action, you're now in violation of that legal notice. Her face went pale. It was clear she'd either thrown the letter away or ignored it completely. That's a lie. You're trying to intimidate me. Am I? I asked. Just then, a pair of headlights swept across the end of the cul-de-sac. A county sheriff's patrol car rolled to a quiet stop behind the flatbed, its light bar not yet activated. Because I also took the liberty of calling the non-emergency sheriff's line to request a civil standby. I wanted an officer present to witness and document this attempt to unlawfully convert my property. It seems they have excellent response times. A deputy stepped out, a tall man with a calm, weathered face. He looked at the tow truck, at me in my driveway, and at Carol in her pink bathrobe. Folks, what seems to be the problem here this morning? Carol launched into a frantic, high-pitched tirade about rules, bylaws, and defiance. I waited patiently until she was done, then handed the deputy a thin manila folder. Deputy, I said, in here you'll find a copy of the HOA bylaws, Section 7, which clearly defines a commercial vehicle. You'll find photographs of my truck, which does not meet that definition. You'll also find a copy of the cease and desist my attorney sent yesterday, and a thumb drive containing time-stamped video of Ms. Dempsey repeatedly trespassing on my property to vandalize my vehicle. The deputy took the folder, his expression unreadable. Carol's face was turning a shade of red that clashed horribly with her robe. She spun on Mike. I am your client. You will tow this truck right now, or I swear I will have your job. Call your boss. I want him down here now. Mike looked at me. I gave him the slightest, most subtle nod. Yes, ma'am, he said, pulling out his phone. I'll call my boss right now. I'll even put him on speaker for you. He tapped the screen. The phone rang once through the speaker, loud in the quiet morning. A voice answered, crisp and professional. My voice. Apex Recovery. You've reached the owner. How can I direct your call? I held my hand out. Mike placed the phone in it. I held it up so everyone could hear. Hi, it's me. I'm down here on Willow Creek Lane with your authorized agent, Carol Dempsey. She seems to be insisting that my driver, Mike, illegally tow my personal truck from my own driveway in direct violation of state law and a formal cease and desist. Can you believe the nerve? Absolute, beautiful silence fell over the street, broken only by the hum of the flatbed's engine and the distant chirp of a bird. The deputy blinked slowly. Mike crossed his arms, a ghost of a smile on his lips, and Carol Dempsey's face collapsed, the smugness evaporating into pure, unadulterated shock. The trap hadn't just been sprung. She was hanging upside down in it. The colour drained from Carol Dempsey's face, leaving behind a pasty, slack-jawed mask of disbelief. The phone in my hand, still broadcasting my own voice, might as well have been a venomous snake. The deputy, a model of professional restraint, simply raised an eyebrow. He looked from the phone to me, then to the sputtering HOA president. Ma'am, the deputy said, his voice cutting through the tension with quiet authority. Is this true? You contracted this gentleman's company in an attempt to remove his personal vehicle? Before she could form a coherent lie, I stepped in. It's all in the contract, deputy. The HOA signed it 6 months ago, but that's actually the least of her problems right now. I turned my attention back to Carol, my voice dropping to a calm, businesslike tone. You see, Carol, when you placed that tow order, you triggered a few clauses in the Apex Recovery Service agreement. Specifically, you authorized an emergency after-hours call-out. That's a non-refundable $400 fee, payable by the client, the HOA, whether the tow is completed or not. A small gasp escaped her lips. Furthermore, I continued, because the tow was ordered under false pretenses and in direct violation of a legally served cease and desist, you've activated the contractual indemnity clause. That means the HOA is now liable for any and all legal fees I've incurred in this matter. My attorney, Mr. Chen, bills at $600 an hour. He's been very thorough. The deputy finally took the manila folder I'd offered him and began flipping through the pages under the glow of the flatbed's amber lights. He paused on the crystal-clear security camera stills of Carol slapping the sticker on my window. "Ma'am," he said, not looking up from the folder, "I have a formal report of criminal trespass and vandalism, with what appears to be clear photographic evidence. I also have a copy of a legal notice you seem to have ignored. Right now you're facing potential charges, and you've exposed your entire association to a significant civil liability." He finally looked at her. "I strongly suggest you return to your home." To Mike, he said, "Sir, you're clear to go. There is no legitimate cause for this vehicle to be impounded." Mike gave a crisp nod, already retracting the flatbed with a hydraulic sigh of relief. He shot me a quick thumbs up as he climbed back into his cab. Carol just stood there, shivering in her bathrobe, watching her entire power play crumble into dust on my driveway. The tow truck pulled away, and the street was silent again. The showdown was over, but the war was about to be won. The following Tuesday was the monthly HOA meeting. The community clubhouse was a stuffy room with fluorescent lighting that buzzed and the faint smell of stale coffee. I arrived early and set up my laptop with the room's projector. When Carol and the rest of the board took their seats at the front table, they refused to make eye contact. When the floor opened for new business, I was the first to the microphone. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't use inflammatory language. I simply presented the facts, the way a lawyer would present a case to a jury. On the screen, I projected Article 7, Section 4 of our own bylaws, then a picture of my truck, then the succession of threatening emails from Carol with their all-caps rage on full display for our neighbors to see. The room grew very, very quiet. Then came the videos. First, the clip of Carol trespassing at 6 a.m. to peer into my truck bed. Then the clip of her trying my door handle. Finally, the satisfying high-definition shot of her slapping the sticker on my window. A collective gasp went through the room. People were turning in their seats to stare at her. "This was never about a truck," I said, my voice steady. "This was a personal vendetta, carried out using our HOA funds and our association's authority." To finish, I projected the final slide. It was an invoice, not from me, but from Apex Recovery and the law offices of David Chen, made out to the Lakeview Meadows Homeowners Association. Emergency towing call-out fee, 400 pesos. Professional vehicle detailing, sticker residue removal, $150,000. Legal fees, cease and desist, consultation, document prep, £2,400. Total due, £2,950. This is the bill for Ms. Dempsey's abuse of power, I announced. A bill that every single one of us will have to pay for with our dues, unless the board holds the responsible party accountable. The explosion of outrage was immediate. My neighbor, a retired accountant named George, stood up. "I make a motion for a vote of no confidence in the President, Carol Dempsey, effective immediately." The motion was seconded by a dozen voices. Within 10 minutes, by a near unanimous show of hands, Carol was stripped of her title. 2 of her board cronies resigned on the spot. By the end of the night, I was asked to step in as interim president to sort out the financial and legal mess she'd left behind. My first act as president was to personally deliver a check from my own account to the HOA to cover the invoice. My second was to work with our attorney to file a civil claim against Carol personally to recoup that money, citing breach of fiduciary duty. Today, my truck sits in my driveway, untouched. The HOA is running more efficiently, our finances are transparent, and our meetings are about maintaining property values, not personal feuds. Sometimes people get a little taste of power and think it makes them a monarch. But a contract is a contract, a bylaw is a bylaw, and the law is the law. And as Carol Dempsey learned, when you try to use someone else's rules against them, you better be sure you're not paying them to pull the trigger. What's the craziest thing an HOA has tried to pull on you? Drop your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales of homeowner justice.